What happens when the act of mercy by a broke cowboy brought 300 Apaches to his door? Witness this unbelievable, true-inspired story right here on Whisper of the Past. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Let's get started. Asterisk, the year was 1876, and the Arizona Territory was a place where survival meant looking out for yourself and nobody else. The land was harsh, unforgiving, and caught between two worlds colliding in blood and dust. For most white settlers, the Apache people were the enemy, feared and hated in equal measure. And for the Apache, every white face represented another threat to their way of life. Another broken promise, another reason to fight back. Asterisk, into this world of hatred and mistrust rode a man named Tom Jeffords. Though some say his name was different, lost to the dust of history. What matters isn't the name, but what he did. He was a cowboy, broke as they come, with holes in his boots and a horse that had seen better days. He'd come west looking for fortune like so many others, but all he'd found was empty pockets and empty promises. Asterisk, one scorching afternoon in late summer, as the sun beat down mercilessly on the red desert rocks, Tom was riding through a narrow canyon when he heard something that made his blood run cold. The unmistakable sound of a child crying. Every instinct told him to ride on, to mind his own business, because nothing good came from investigating strange sounds in Apache territory. But something deeper, something human, wouldn't let him leave. Asterisk, he dismounted and followed the sound, his hand never far from his revolver. What he found would change his life forever. Huddled behind a boulder was a young Apache boy, no more than 7 or 8 years old. The child's leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, clearly broken, and his face was streaked with tears and dirt. Near him lay the body of what appeared to be his father, an arrow wound visible in his chest. Likely the victim of a raid by a rival tribe, or perhaps soldiers. Asterisk, Tom stood there for a long moment, staring at the boy. He knew what most men would do. They'd ride away, or worse. The frontier was no place for mercy, especially not between enemies. But as he looked into those terrified eyes, he didn't see an Apache. He didn't see a savage or an enemy. He saw a scared, hurt child who would die alone in this canyon without help. Asterisk, against every bit of frontier wisdom, Tom made his choice. He approached the boy slowly, hands visible, speaking in a soft voice, even though the child couldn't understand his words. The boy tried to scramble away, despite his broken leg, crying out in pain and fear. Tom took off his canteen and offered water, then sat down a few feet away, waiting, showing he meant no harm. Asterisk, it took nearly an hour before the boy would let Tom approach. When he finally did, Tom used sticks and strips from his own shirt to splint the broken leg as best he could. He wrapped the boy in his bedroll, lifted him gently onto his horse, and made a decision that most would call pure madness. He would try to find the boy's people and return him. Asterisk, for 3 days. Tom rode deeper into Apache territory, subsisting on the last of his supplies, knowing that at any moment he could be killed on sight. He followed signs, old trails, the subtle marks that most white men would never notice. All the while, he cared for the boy, sharing his dwindling water, making sure the child ate what little food remained. Asterisk, on the 4th day, as dawn broke over the desert, Tom crested a ridge and found himself staring down at an Apache camp. His heart hammered in his chest as he saw dozens of warriors, women, and children going about their morning routines. This was it. This was where he would likely die. Asterisk, but he'd come this far. He rode forward slowly, one hand raised in peace, the other steadying the boy on the horse in front of him. The reaction was immediate. Warriors grabbed weapons. Women rushed children into shelters, and within seconds, Tom was surrounded by a circle of armed Apache men, their faces hard as stone, their weapons trained on him. Asterisk, Tom carefully lifted the boy down from the horse, steadying him on his good leg. A woman screamed and rushed forward, clearly the boy's mother, her face a mixture of joy and disbelief. She grabbed her son, tears streaming down her face. Checking him over frantically. Asterisk, the boy spoke rapidly in Apache, gesturing to Tom to his splinted leg, clearly telling the story. The circle of warriors didn't lower their weapons, but something shifted in their eyes. An older man, clearly a chief or elder, stepped forward. He studied Tom for a long moment, his weathered face unreadable. Asterisk, then the chief did something unexpected. He placed his hand on Tom's shoulder and spoke in broken English. "You bring our son home. You fix his leg. You could have left him to die. You could have killed him, but you show mercy." Tom was taken to the center of the camp, given food and water. The Apache people gathered around, looking at this strange white man who had done the unthinkable. Word spread quickly through the interconnected Apache bands. The story of the broke cowboy who risked his life to save an Apache child began to travel from camp to camp, told and retold around evening fires. 3 weeks later. Tom was preparing to leave, having been treated as an honored guest. The chief told him he would always be welcome in any Apache camp, that he had earned their respect and trust. But Tom had no idea what was about to happen. As he rode away from the camp, he noticed dust on the horizon. At first, he thought it might be soldiers or raiders, but as the figures drew closer, his jaw dropped in amazement. Apache warriors were appearing from every direction, not to attack, but to honor. From the hills, the valleys, the distant mesas, they came. By the time Tom reached the edge of Apache territory, nearly 300 Apache warriors had gathered. They lined the trail on both sides, creating a corridor of honor. They stood in silence, weapons raised not in threat, but in salute, acknowledging this one white man who had shown that mercy and humanity could exist even in the darkest times. Tom rode through that corridor with tears streaming down his face, understanding that he had witnessed something profound. In a time of hatred and war, one simple act of kindness had bridged a divide that most thought impossible to cross. The story of the broke cowboy and the Apache boy became legend in the territory. Tom never got rich, never found his fortune in gold or cattle, but he gained something far more valuable. He had proven that even in the most unlikely circumstances, compassion could triumph over hatred. That one person, choosing mercy over violence, could change hearts and minds. That gathering of 300 Apache warriors wasn't just a thank you. It was a message to the world that humanity recognizes humanity, regardless of the color of skin or the culture we come from. It was proof that even in the darkest chapters of history, there are moments of light, moments when people choose to be better than the hatred around them demands. And that, friends, is a lesson that echoes through time, as relevant today as it was in 1876. One act of mercy, one choice to see another human being instead of an enemy, brought 300 warriors to honor a broke cowboy with holes in his boots. What will your act of mercy be? If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe to Whisper of the Past for more incredible historical tales, and share in the comments where you're watching from. Until next time, remember that history isn't just about the big battles and famous names. Sometimes, it's about one person making one choice that changes everything.